Ruslan.
What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world repeatedly makes overt professions about his faith in Jesus? How does the world receive this sort of information? Are there aspects of his own personal life or maybe some of his past positions that make it convoluted and confusing? What does this all mean ultimately for God potentially moving and impacting culture with the good news of who Jesus is? That is what we're going to be talking about. Justin Bieber has been fairly outspoken about his faith, and we're going to be looking at some of the statements, and then we're going to be juxtaposing them with some of the things that are, fair to say, a bit incongruent with his faith. Okay, so here is him opening up on about his faith in this short clip. Check this out.
Just very public about my faith journey and how my relationship with Jesus has helped me to just, not be so hard on myself. Like just the idea that I'm forgiven and that, he's walking me through this journey, and day by day I get to just, get better and better and not be too hard on myself.
Justin Bieber says that his faith journey has allowed him to not be too hard on himself while at the same time walk closer with God and consistently get better in that sanctification process. Now, Justin Bieber has been outspoken about his faith for a very long time. It is true that he has been around different Bible studies and different pastors, even as celebrity pastors that he's since distanced himself from, like a Carl Lentz. It is true that he's done events and had worship songs at his events and done altar calls at his events. Recently, about a year and a half ago, he had Judah Smith preach at his event and share the gospel. And so the question comes down to, you have someone that's boldly professing faith in Jesus, okay? And then you have someone that clearly has some aspects of their public persona and their content that's incongruent with some of these things, if we're going to be fair and honest about it. Right now, there's obviously talks of him coming out in terms of the pro-deletion of babies position, right? In terms of it, rights for women, as some would phrase it, between him and his wife. I remember that coming out after Roe v. Wade got overturned. There's also his biggest records like Peaches that are filled with profanity and not the most conducive to someone that's professing to be a Christian. Yet, this aspect of him has been consistent. There's been aspects of his journey that have been inconsistent. His consumption of cannabis, his consumption of alcohol, so on and so forth, right? And so there's this tension that we see in terms of Justin Bieber. And so I think there's two extremes we can go to. One extreme we can go to is to a hyper grace position. Well, all you got to do is say the prayer, place your faith in Jesus, and how you live doesn't matter. That would be a hyper grace position. That would be a cheap grace position, in my opinion. If you say the prayer, you believe in Jesus, then that's it. You're in, and the rest doesn't matter. Easy believism. The other position would be nitpicking apart every aspect of Justin Bieber's life, persona, things he said on social media, and saying because he's wrong in these areas, it's therefore reasonable to conclude that God's not doing any work in his life, right? And I think that would be, in my opinion, a pharisaical position, right? So one is easy grace, easy believism. You don't really have to conform to the image of God. The other side is saying, hey, because there's these glaring issues and because he's not perfect in the way we want him to be, or perhaps even congruent in the way he should be, that therefore he's out. He's not really saved. It's all a facade. It's all fake. It's an accessory. And I think both positions are wrong. I think the reality is that most people, when you're truly honest with yourself, when you lay down at night, when you go to bed, and really take assessment of where your day-to-day life is, and really take assessment of some of the things you say in private, or some of the things you do that other people may not know about, or some of the things you think but maybe never say or do. When you really get to the heart of it, and you compare our ways to God's ways, that what triggers us about someone like Justin being unapologetic in his faith, I think, is that it's kind of a mirror to where a lot of us are. I think it's kind of a mirror. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't say, hey man, this part kind of incongruent with professing to be a Christian. You talking about launching cannabis lines and selling that as a part of someone that's professing to be a Christian? Man, I think that part's a little incongruent. Using this sort of language, I think that's a bit incongruent being a Christian. That's fair, right? So we don't just blindly assume that everybody is doing all the things that they should be doing, but we also don't discard and dismiss people because we don't know what the previous decades of his life look like. We don't know how far gone he was in other ways. We don't know what's happened to his mental state. We don't know what may have happened to his health. We don't know what's going on in that dude's life, right? And so it's this balance that we see Jesus repeatedly showing to people of grace and truth. It's this balance of, I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm going to accept you where you are because I died on the cross for your sins. But I'm also not going to let you stay where you are. And so from the outside in, if people are looking at Justin Bieber, they could think whatever. But you know what I see? I see a young man that has grown and has changed and has made sacrifices. Everything from his temperament to, not too long ago, this dude fighting paparazzi guys and getting into scuffles and catching DUIs, to him being promiscuous with women. And all of a sudden his temperament's different. He's calmed down a lot. He's out here married and not fornicating. These are all things that if you don't count those as repentance, and by repentance, I mean changing your mind first about God and what Jesus did for you, but then also about the rest of your life. About, hey, I can't just be out here sleeping with random girls or having girlfriends and, not being married to, like, I'm going to be a one woman man. I'm going to get married, right? Hey, I can't be out here just cussing out paparazzi and all these different things. I gotta chill out. I gotta be better. I'm going to change. All right. All of these different things I think are fruit. I think the question is, how much fruit are we demanding? And are you demanding the type of fruit in someone else's life that you aren't producing in your own life? Are you demanding fruit in someone else's life that you aren't producing in your own life? Right? So maybe you aren't out here fornicating with women anymore, but are you still looking at porn? Maybe you aren't using profanity, but are you still speaking ill of your neighbor? And maybe you aren't literally saying cuss words, but you're speaking death over people's lives, right? And I think all of this stuff is when you actually compare who you are to Jesus, and you compare your ways to Jesus' ways, how you live to what Jesus expects. All of us should fall at the cross, and all of us should be broken and confused and distraught. How such a good God could come and live the life we didn't live, die to death we should have died on the cross in our place, right? Like that levels the playing field. And so that's the heart of what I'm trying to get at, is that we need both a bold proclamation and a bold demonstration with how we are to engage on this side of eternity. And we're not going to do it perfectly, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it at all. As we're examining our proclamation and demonstration, as we're examining the reality that God is doing something in our hearts through the work on the cross, to the practicality of us having to conform to the image of God, of us having to conform to what it means to follow Jesus. All of this should lead to a healthy tension. And in my opinion, all of this should lead to a healthy humility. All of this should lead to a healthy humility that just because someone isn't where you are in your sanctification journey, just because someone doesn't do the things that you think they should do, just because someone doesn't condemn the specific sins you think they should condemn, that they're less than solid with God, or they're a JV Christian, or that they're really jacked up. Because when we really get to the heart of it, all of us fall short of the glory of God. When we really get to the heart of it, none of us are righteous without Christ. When we really get to the heart of it, all of us can be doing more in terms of pressing into Jesus. All of us could be developing better disciplines. All of us could be consecrating our mind. And all of us don't start in the same place. All of us don't start in the same beginning, and we end up in different places. Some of you guys, listen, man, you guys came from incredible families. Your parents did right. They raised you right. They raised you in the local church. They poured into you. They discipled you. They made sure you were in great youth groups. They made sure that you had good community. They made sure that you knew the Bible. And that's helped you avoid a lot of the issues that a Justin Bieber or someone like myself or someone else may have gone through, right? That's helped you to avoid that. And that's awesome. And that's how I hope to raise my kids, is to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that the world puts in front of us. The flip side to that is there's folks who didn't have the same access. They didn't have the same family structure. And by proxy, their cross is going to be different. Their struggles are going to be different. Their challenges are going to be different. All of these different things play out differently based on where we are in life. And I would hope that we could extend the same grace and mercy we demand from others, and the same grace and mercy that we needed from God, that we could extend that to other people. And my heart is that Justin Bieber would get plugged into a local church and get discipled and get around some good people, which maybe he's doing all of that. I don't know, right? But I appreciate that he's willing to make bold proclamations. I appreciate that he's willing to be unapologetic about his faith. I appreciate that he's willing to say things, even though a part of me goes, I wish he didn't say it that way. I wish he would have did more this way. I wish he didn't co-sign this thing, right? I'm in that tension with you, right? And that's okay. And so ultimately, don't assume to know someone's journey because you watch him from afar, because you really don't know what he's going through. And so that would be my heart for all of us, man, is as we are pressing into the sanctification journey, as we are pressing into Jesus, as we are doing our best to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, we would extend some grace to other people, because at the end of the day, none of us are perfect. And if you think you're perfect, well, odds are you're struggling with pride. Odds are you have a plank in your eye, and it's called pride, and you need to work through that. And that, by the way, is sinful too. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think about it.